Welcome to Canada's Local Gardener Podcast. I'm Shauna Doby, and I'm here with my mother, Dorothy.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's a beautiful day out there. I don't know what it's like where you are, Shauna, but the weather is fantastic in Winnipeg.
Good. And we're here with...
She doesn't sound impressed.
Well, people could be listening to this at any time.
That's true.
And we're here today with Jan Pedersen from Shelmerdine. Is it Jan or Jan?
Either is fine. Jan is more what most people use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Jan, you're going to talk to us about flowering trees and shrubs.
Yeah, sounds good.
And before we get into that, you were the owner of Shelmerdine for a while, and tell me what you do now.
Sure. I was a co-owner there. It's a company that's always been owned by more than one person. And yeah, I spent about 25 years operating the garden center along with various partners.
The largest one in Winnipeg?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just had a wonderful time. Had great customers. I mean, when your customers come running to your business because they love plants, I mean, what better environment can you work in? And it's provided employment for my children as they got their way through university all those years. And lots and lots of people that I hired are still there.
Wow.
30-odd years later. So yeah, it's a testament to the nature of the business, horticulture, and also to the current owners, Chad and Nicole. They're continuing the tradition, changing some aspects of the company to keep it modern and fresh, but primarily it's still a plant company with a lot of really cool add-ons that weren't there when I was there.
You changed it a lot too, though, Jan, because I remember back in the early days when we first started the gardening magazine, and, it was just a tiny little shop at the time, and you took it to this major outfit that really is. It's the biggest in the province. So kudos to you.
Thanks. And that's the province of Manitoba. Shelmerdine is located just outside of Winnipeg, really, in Headingley, isn't it?
Correct.
And, one of the great things I love about going to Winnipeg, because I live in Toronto, is that you do have garden centers still. I don't want to get in trouble for saying this, but all of our garden centers are closing or have recently closed. I think it's just a factor of when they started up and who was running them, and they all closed.
The corporate world has taken over a lot in the big cities like Toronto, so there are very few of them. But it's wonderful here to be able to go from center to center, and every garden center, and you'll know this, it brings in different plants and has a different eye for what they want. So you got to go to them all. It's just the way it is.
I wasn't in retail for the last 9 years. I was in another aspect of horticulture, wholesale sales. So I got a chance to visit all the centers, and I made that a point all the time. And they are all different. I mean, obviously my favorite is my go-to where my friends and ex-partners are. But I also really loved visiting the wide array of garden centers north of Winnipeg, south of Winnipeg, the tiny ones, inner city, and
out throughout Saskatchewan.
I had to work there too. And I would bring plants home from Saskatchewan because their menu, their palette of what they offered their customers was a little different than here. Yeah.
But you worked for a wonderful company in BC, and I wonder how many people really know about that company and what it does in terms of, shrubs and perennials and things like that.
That company is called Bylands Nurseries, and it's easily the largest wholesale plant grower in Western Canada. Maybe in Canada, there's a very large, wonderful wholesale nursery called Sheridan's out east. And my guess is they're perhaps similar in size from what I understand, both great firms. I had the pleasure of working with Bylands for 9 seasons, representing them to all the garden centers in the center of Canada and 3 northern U.S. states. Wow. And their reputation precedes them. They're just an awesome.
They have a fabulous calendar. They have a fabulous catalog with, I still use it in the Jeffries catalog for a lot of information.
Okay. So let's get down to it.
Sure.
I've been writing about hydrangeas lately, and that is where I'm going to start. Tell me, Jan, what's the deal with hydrangeas? Why does Proven Winners and the other companies, why do they keep coming up with new cultivars all the time, every year?
Well, I suppose part of that, the answer to that question would be just businesses in general, no matter what the product, like to change their offerings and their styles to keep interest, both among consumers as well as the retail buyers at the garden centers interested in what's there. Some of the changes they make are improvements on old varieties. I see there's a new Limelight this year, for example, to name one. So as they genetically improve either hardiness, turgidity of the stems, maybe for holding up the blossoms, or the longevity of the bloom, I think they're well justified in either calling it an improved variety, or if it's different enough, then its protege or its parent renaming it. However, having said that, it is confusing. There's a lot of paniculata types, which are the hardy ones for Western Canada. A lot of arborescens.
The paniculata are the
confusing.
Are the paniculata the ones that are sort of like shaped like a
cone? Like a panicle.
No, they're sort of, like a panicle.
Like an ice cream cone that's just starting to melt.
Yeah.
Tipping over. So PG is sort of the mother or the grandparent, great-grandparent of most of them in the paniculata line. Paniculatas they're hardy. The colors change through the change of seasons in terms of, if blooming time opens up in June, July, it's a whole different color in August as the nights cool, and then a much more vibrant fall color as autumn comes on. And then the newer varieties also really do a great job of holding their dried mop heads all winter long, which people will either cut and use for their winter bouquets or do what I do. I just kind of leave them to appear above the snow and add some winter interest to the yard.
That's what I do too.
Yeah.
And with the color changing now, this is something the writer of this article is from Vancouver. And so she wrote about how you can change the colors of your hydrangeas from pink to blue and blue to pink. And that is more of a Vancouver thing to do than it is the rest of the country, isn't it?
No, because you can't do it with all hydrangeas.
Right. You can do it with the macrophylla or macrophylla.
Macrophyllas really benefit from an acidity uptick or increasing the acidity of soil.
Yeah.
Macrophyllas being the very large blooming varieties with macrophylla, meaning direct translation, large leaf. So the big leafed hydrangeas, they tend to be less hardy in the Canadian prairies, but they're totally reliable in middle and southern Ontario and all points east, and of course British Columbia. And they do okay here in the prairies. They're really not as
we have some new cultivars that work like what's that blue one that you had?
Bloomstruck. Macrophylla. It's from the Endless Summer line.
And they don't get so tall?
Here in the prairies where I am, the ones I've grown barely get waist high.
Yeah.
Where the paniculatas can tower up to 6-7 feet and still be full and leafy right to the ground. So they do tend to stay short. And then that whole macrophylla, big leaf, Endless Summer line tends to not be as floriferous as the paniculatas. And then one must not forget the third general line, the arborescens. The arborescens, Annabelle from Annabelle, Illinois, kind of started that one off back in the 1930s, I think. And the Annabelle has just been improved and improved and improved upon over and over again. Yet Annabelle is still a top seller.
Yeah, because it's the best.
Something about it's charming, and maybe it's a bit nostalgic for folks, but that whole arborescens line is completely hardy here in Manitoba
and in Saskatchewan and in Alberta and in many places in the Maritimes too.
Yeah. It's funny because when you talk about the way the flowers impact your memories, when it comes to lilacs, I have one of the miniature, I think it's Miss Kim or a mini one. And I think it might rebloom. I can't remember. But my all-time favorite lilacs are just the old-fashioned. I guess they're probably Preston lilacs. My grandmother had them. Big old trees that you find all across Canada.
Yeah.
But, and a lot of people thought, and I thought too, before I got into gardening, that they were native to Canada because you see them around old homesteads all the time. But they're not, are they?
I don't believe so. I think they were brought over by Northern European and British settlers. And I believe Carigana is the same. I think it was introduced to Western Canada from Europe. So, yeah, you're right. And you mentioned Preston. Mm-hmm. Preston is an old series or part of an old series of lilacs. Maybe not as old as the Vulgaris group. The Vulgaris group is the French and the Commons, which, of course, to me, they have the most luxurious color combinations or color choices, the most scent, and they're early bloomers, which is kind of fun. And then whether it's desired or not desired, they are the ones that sucker the most. And that's useful in many cases for different applications, and maybe not useful in small type gardens, urban gardens, but very useful in rural gardens and for if it's going to be part of a windscreen or an eco buffer.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't know that people know that they can live up to 200 years, which is one of the reasons we thought they were native, because, gosh, they'd be sitting on an old homestead and you'd think it was there forever.
Yeah. The homestead's gone, but the lilacs are still there.
Still there, yeah, exactly.
Now, which ones is it that sucker? Is it the French or the Preston?
French. Yeah, the Frenches and the Commons are the suckers, early blooming. The Prestons are the non-suckerers. So Preston includes like Preston Royalty, Donald Wyman, Velosa is a nice old variety. And they're neater, tidier. And it's kind of fun because they bloom later. So as the Frenches and the Commons are fading away, in come the color from the Prestons or the Velosa series. So, it adds depth and length to the flowering season. It is still in June, so it's still in late spring, early summer a little bit if the season starts later. And they're the ones with the wrinkly, crinkly, dark leaf.
Okay.
Yeah. Minuet is another one that's a member of that family. Minuet being kind of not a cross, but in size, it ends up being about halfway between a dwarf lilac and the larger Prestons and Velosas.
Which one is the one with the variegated flower with the white, the picotee?
Beautiful.
Dapple Dawn is the name. When it was introduced from Ontario to Western Canada back in the day, it was called Dapple Dawn, and they adjusted the name a little bit more recently, and I can't get my finger on it. Being out of plant sales for 1 year,
doesn't take long to forget. But it is a beautiful lilac that not everybody's familiar with.
Yeah, variegated common, you can call it that too. And I have one in the front yard, and it's really nice. It's a gold and green foliage, and it is a true variegated, like intense variegation, much like a golden or a silver dogwood. I mean, it's reliable and intense. And the blue on the bloom is a real blue. It's almost like a porcelain blue. So very nice.
Is that the one with the flowers that are white and blue, or you're talking about the leaves?
That's the one that the flowers are blue.
Okay,
the flowers are blue. The leaves are gold and green.
That's different.
And it's just this nice combination of three colors.
I've never seen that one, but
there is one called Sensation.
That's the one. That's the one. Yeah. Sensation.
That's the multicolored.
It is sensational.
Has two colors. Yeah. Sensation.
Purple and Skinner's did one, not Skinner's, but
that's
the one.
That's what I was going to ask about. Now, which is the Canadian one? Was most Canadian type of lilac?
Well, the Preston series has Canadian heritage in it.
That's what I was thinking. Okay.
There's another series called Hyacinthiflora.
Oh.
So, lilac in Latin is syringa. Okay. So Syringa hyacinthiflora, flowers like hyacinth, have a Western Manitoba origin. The Skinner family up at Dropmore introduced the three popular varieties of hyacinthiflora. Mount Baker for white, Assisipi for lavender, and Pocahontas for violet. Yeah.
They're just wonderful. And they smell so good.
Yeah.
I have to say, and I know all the people not from Winnipeg are going to hate me for saying this, but I love that somebody got off the plane from Toronto and said, "Oh, I knew I was in Winnipeg because it smelled like lilacs."
On that note, we really do have to stop for a couple of minutes and check in with Ian at head office. He's going to tell us a couple of 10 neat things.
Tooth of the lion. The English common name dandelion comes from the French dent de lion, meaning tooth of the lion. The Latin taraxacum derives from the Arabic word for wild chicory. More fun than either of these two is the more vulgar French word pissenlit. It translates as pee the bed, a nod to the diuretic properties for which dandelion was medicinally used.
And we're back. Okay. Jan, let me ask you, what kind of flowering shrubs do you have in your own garden?
Oh, wow. Lots. I have a whole range. Weigela is a favorite that comes to mind, especially the variegated varieties. My Monet.
Yeah, that's a beautiful one.
Weigela varieties. And
it's just beautiful fuchsia.
What else do I have that's nice? I tried to collect all of the 9 barks. And
all of them.
Do like the Manitoba introduction is my favorite, and that's not because I'm from here. It would be anyway. And that's the
Golden Jubilee.
Amber Jubilee.
Amber Jubilee, that's the one. I've got that too. That is the most amazing plant. It starts off one color and it changes throughout the season until it becomes almost wine colored in the fall.
Yeah.
It just is a constant change. You don't need flowers because it's so beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. And it tends to have its elegant fall color in the spring. And there's one thing about it. If like mine will kind of just go to a sort of an everyday common purple during the summer. What I'll do is as soon as it loses that mixture of ambers and oranges and apricots, which is what makes it stand out, and it loses that and it kind of just goes to kind of a dull purpley color. Still a nice plant. I cut it back 25-30%. Trim it, and within 48 to 96 hours there's new growth appearing all over the place, and up comes another 2, 3, 4 weeks of amber and orange and apricots.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So you just kind of cheat it a little bit.
I have to say something about Jan's garden. He will not say this, so I have to. It's a work of art in foliage.
Thanks.
And it's not just about the colors of the plants; it's the textures, the height, the leaf color. Of course, is important, but he's done an amazing job, an artist job, with his front yard.
It must be a big yard.
No, I live in the St. James area of Winnipeg, and it's average sized yard, about a 60-foot width, a little longer than normal, but yeah, it's not, and anybody can do it with most yards. Suburban Canada. I'm just going to say that my yard is 16 feet wide. Oh, that's by 100 feet deep. And that includes, there's a house on it and there's a parking spot. 16 by 100. That sounds like urban Toronto. It's not that small for Toronto. Yeah. It's not big, but it's not that small. So you tell me about your 60-foot yard. Yeah. And I start to get envious. Really, I looked hard to make sure there was lots of variety in foliage color. So the barberries, of course, are prominent in all their colors, including the variegated varieties. They glow in the sunshine. They give off light. That's one of the lovely things about barberry. It's not just one color. It captures that light and it reflects it in a really interesting way. Exactly. It's like turning a light on in a dark corner. Oh, not a dark corner, but yeah, it does. It's like a little neon plant. Yeah. Yeah. What else do I have? A lot of spireas. Yeah. And if that just kind of goes without saying. Hydrangeas, of course. Well, I limited the hydrangeas to about 4 or 5 varieties only. I do have forsythia, and last year spring just came to Canada, or came to Manitoba in the right way. The forsythias were in full bloom all over Winnipeg. Is that right? Because they often won't bloom there, eh? Oh, they bloom. They bloom.
Do they? I thought if you get the flowers want to come out so early that if you get a freeze,
that can happen.
It won't kill the tree, but it'll kill the flowers.
We have a variety here called Northern. What is it? Yeah.
Oh,
Northern Gold.
Yeah.
Northern Gold, and that one's pretty hardy here.
Yes.
Big too.
That's okay.
Yeah. So you had that full set of yellow when springs are right. Full set of yellow, not a leaf in sight, and just like in England and Northern Europe. Dyer Villa is a fun plant to grow. Dyer Villa or dwarf bush honeysuckle.
Yeah, I didn't even put that down on my list. So tell us about that.
There's some really neat colors. Like there's a Kodiak series. So there's a Kodiak orange and a Kodiak red. These happen to be proven winter varieties. But fly honeysuckle, bush honeysuckle, different parts of North America name them a little differently, but it's the new growth that it produces that's really vibrant and different than the base of the plant. And as the new growth takes on the older leaf color below it, more new growth emerges at the top. And then for a brief time in midsummer, it's in yellow blooming stage for attracting small birds and colorful insects. So it's a plant I really like, dwarf bush honeysuckle or Dyer Villa.
Another standard that came out of Manitoba, the Skinners again, was the honeysuckle vine, the Dropmore Scarlet.
Yeah, Dropmore Scarlet, trumpet
attracts
honeysuckle.
Hummingbirds.
Yeah, and UBC kind of improved on it 25, 30 years ago with the Mandarin version, just a different color set to the petals and the throat. So the two together are really, really nice. And I guess,
go ahead.
One shouldn't forget winter color, especially where there's a lot of winter and a lot of snow. So the dogwoods or anything with bright colored stems that maintain that vibrancy above the snow line.
So red for dogwood. What's yellow?
More dogwoods.
Both dogwoods are both yellow and red. Okay.
Is it a yellow? Is the yellow an osier dogwood?
That's going to have a red stem in the winter too, but gold twig dogwoods, buds yellow. Those have a really nice yellowy or some chartreuse green kind of stemming in the wintertime, which is nice. And you can get that too by, if you have room for a willow. Golden willow is gorgeous in the winter. And there you need a yard. I mean, you're going to have a yard for that, but you can still keep them clipped pretty tight so that the new growth is always there above the snow line.
I really like that little dwarf willow, the little, oh gosh, but it's just a small.
Nishiki?
Well, Nishiki's very nice too. That's the one that gets the changing the changing leaf color, right?
Yeah.
It goes from green to creamy white to pinkish colored all at one time.
Sometimes, depending on the temperatures, you might be thinking of one of the golden leafed.
I'm actually thinking of the little wolf willow. It's a dwarf wolf that Jeffrey's bred, and I like the gray leaves, the gray foliage, that silver foliage. I mean, you don't see that very often in shrubs, and it's really nice in the garden.
Yeah, the polar bear willow is also got that dull gray look to it. And when I say dull, I mean it's a matte finish that really is pretty in the yard. So wolf willow, polar bear willow, even dwarf Arctic willow almost has a blue tinge to it. It's a silvery gray with a little bit of pigment of blue mixed in it. It's very nice. And speaking of Jeffrey's Nurseries, a few years ago, they introduced an olive called Silverado, which is a really stunning shrub. It's got a wolfy willow kind of look to it, but it is a cousin to Russian olive. It's like a dwarf shrub Russian olive with a very bright silver with a white undertone kind of to it.
What about, now you're talking about a lot of very hardy shrubs. What about Buddleia?
Buddleia, butterfly bush. Yeah.
Can you grow them in Winnipeg?
You can. When I was in retail, and I think garden centers still do it, they offer it, or we offered it as what we call a hobby plant. So if you gave it the right conditions and a lot of insulated snow cover, you probably could winter it and enjoy its blooms year after year. It would never get as big as they do in, say, Minneapolis or Toronto, but it's still a beautiful plant. And some people will just buy Buddleias as 1 or 2 gallon, like 6-inch or 8-inch pots from a garden center, put them into a planter, fertilize them really well, and you'll get a really nice butterfly attracting display of blooms in the summer, and it will last all summer.
I had one that lasted. One that lasted about 3 or 4 years, but they really are tender. It must have been just good winters.
Yeah. My family's from Northern Europe, and Buddleia is a standard. I mean, if you build a home or redo a garden, after you've put out your deck and or patio, the first thing you go to the garden center and you buy 5 or 10 Buddleias.
Really?
They just do it because they want that. The color is stunning, but that they're kind of like zone 4, zone 5. So
okay,
a little more challenging in zone 3, Winnipeg.
Yeah, for sure. And they'll die down right to the ground, won't they, over winter?
Yeah. So they behave like a perennial in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That happens to many of our hydrangeas too. And we look for plants that bloom on this year's wood for hardy climates like ours.
Right. Yeah. The paniculatas will bloom on this year's wood in hydrangea. Yeah.
Here's one I don't actually like, so you'll have to change my mind maybe. Potentilla. When I see those yellow flowers, all I can think of is gas stations. They always have potentilla, and I think it's because it's got to be tough as nails. Why would I plant a potentilla in my yard?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. The gas station plant, the plant that will always live. It'll never die, but where it gets no care and maintenance, it will live on those commercial sites, but it won't look attractive at all.
Yeah.
But they do look attractive, and they're stunning when they're maintained proper with pruning. So no matter what height it is, what size it is, a heavy pruning, either in the autumn, or I prefer to do it in April, and a vigorous pruning, like 50% or more removed. Mm-hmm. It just cleans up that kind of shreddy, dirty looking, seed heady mess that came through the winter. And at least it gives you some nice tight little brown buds that are dormant, but it spurs on an enormous amount of new growth, that vigorous pruning. And they always reliably will flower on that new growth. So
always, okay.
If potentilla is looking fresh and vibrant and something that you're proud of, it just requires that vigorous, deep, early spring pruning before there's any bud break or any leaf activity.
Oh, okay.
Are there hints for people, things that they should avoid when they're pruning like that, Jan?
On potentilla?
Or on any shrub?
Well, you can't apply what I just told you about potentillas to everything. Yeah. You can apply it to most of the popular spireas, for example. Like the magic carpet is kind of the gold standard of multicolored leaf with a pleasant kind of pinky mauve bloom spirea. They can be cut and treated that same way. A 50% round the dormant plant haircut in April, and the reward is just vibrancy in the foliage, vibrancy in the blooms. And so potentillas will respond that way. But things like lilacs and mock orange, that would be a real no-no.
Yeah.
Lilacs need to be, if you need to control their size or their shape a little bit, just prune carefully, but right after flowering season. Don't do it in the early spring before the new growth comes out, because you'll never, ever get a set of flowers then. And they just don't bud out with vibrant new growth the way spireas and potentillas do. So.
Okay, we're going to take another wee break to hear what the folks have got to say back at head office.
It's hard to believe spring is actually here. Are you ready to garden? Is your garden ready for you? Learn more when you subscribe to Canada's local gardener magazine. Come and grow with us.
And we're back. Okay, so you were just telling us about something about Philadelphus mock orange?
Yeah, Philadelphus mock orange. They generally, they don't like an aggressive pruning like potentillas and spireas would enjoy. They're kind of lilac in nature, where you will get your best blooms if there's some older wood for the new growth to appear on. They do flower on new growth, but they also will flower more dependably on the older growth. So basically, if you like mock orange, as I do, and I've got a couple, buy the size that suits you. There are dwarf varieties like Snow Dwarf and Starbright that mature at 3 to 4 feet. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the big old varieties like Lewis Waterton and Minnesota Snowflake, they'll grow nicely to 7 feet and bloom right to the tips each year. Mm-hmm. And the reward, of course, with mock orange is the fake orange smell.
They smell wonderful, but really they're nice. Pretty too. They look like they smell a little like camellias. But the question that I had is, because I've had this advice from others, that you should thin out the canes right to the ground. And I don't know if that's true or not. What do you say? Yeah. Once they get really old and woody in the center, you want to carefully select old kind of gray looking bark canes and remove them right out at ground level. But that would be, say, 5-year growth and older. Yeah. And then anything, say, 3 to 4 years and younger, leave it on. Trim the tips back a little bit just to kind of maintain a neat size, but not aggressively. Never aggressively. If it's become too big for the spot, then maybe just change the function of that spot so you can keep the plant going, or just start over with something else. But so when you take those big old ones out, does that help the plant? Does it help to?
It just keeps it fresh.
Yeah.
The foliage is a lot nicer. There's more reliable foliage right down to ground level, and it just keeps it fresh looking.
Because I've done that. I've been out there just about killed myself cutting out old branches. Thinking, is this the right thing to do? Somebody told me to do this and I'm doing it, but I'm not sure why.
Yeah, if you're truly thinning and leaving like the middle-aged growth in or branches to ground level in place, it'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have what the heck is it? This is the problem with doing a podcast at the end of the day, isn't it?
When you're starting to get a little older, it takes longer, right? Remember?
We have a flowering show. You know what? I'm going to say just cut that whole part out about we have a. How about viburnums? That's one we haven't really mentioned. And I guess it's that they're often more about the berry than the flower.
Ooh. Both.
Yeah.
Both, really. And they're about fall color, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like viburnums like the shade, or they prefer some downtime with sun during the day, which make them a really valuable plant for mid-sun, mid-shade, or deep shade.
Even the north side of your house?
Yeah, as long as they don't get too wet, because in deep shade, if they're getting overhead watered, they'll also pick up some fungus disease on their foliage. So,
right,
keeping them on the dry side, foliar-wise, is a good idea. But some of them really do have gorgeous blooms. Like Spice Baby is a newer one with a multicolored pink and white bloom. I have always liked even old-fashioned Nanny Berry. Mm-hmm. A tall, narrow growing version of viburnum.
Now, years ago, I had a blueberry muffin viburnum, and I chose it because I love the blueberries and I like the name. Yeah. But I had it only a couple of years, and then what did I get? Some kind of viburnum leaf worm?
Okay.
You're not familiar with it?
No.
Okay, well then never mind.
Bugs vary from part of the
yeah. It decimated my shrub.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had to get rid of it.
The way blue muffin, it's a dentatum viburnum, and it has a lot of fleshy new growth, like almost not quite woody, more somewhat herbaceous. Mm-hmm. So maybe it is attracting some kind of a cutworm type insect that will invade the stem. I've never had that problem here.
Oh, okay. They must not be hardy in Winnipeg, because it was a long time ago, but I'm sure it was viburnum leaf.
Oh, they're hardy here. I just never really heard.
No, I meant the worm isn't.
Oh, the worm.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, the worm probably isn't. Yeah. You know what I really love? I love the cutleaf elder, that really beautiful chartreuse color. Mm-hmm. That I've got one. I'm in love with it. so gorgeous.
Yeah. Lemon lace.
Yes. Yeah. But there's another purple one too, isn't there?
Yep. There's black lace.
Black lace.
Black lace is really nice. There's a subset of black lace called licorice sticks, which is a lace, burgundy lace elder that's narrow, almost columnar in habit. And then the golden variety is called Golden Tower, which is a narrow version also of the golden variety. But black lace, I like it better even than Black Beauty. Black Beauty is a full leaf. Yeah. And black lace is the deep cut lace leaf. And they used to say that the full leaf was hardier in zone 3, but I found quite the opposite. I have one or two of each, and I find the black lace outperforms the Black Beauty.
Yeah.
Really?
I wouldn't be scared of either of them.
Yeah.
You don't need perennials when you've got...
lace is a nice one.
Yeah, you've got these... When you've got shrubs with these kinds of colors, I mean... They really do. I think people think about shrubs and they just think about a little green thing that looks a bit like a tree and it's kind of round. But my goodness, they are so gorgeous. If you start looking at them, you fall in love absolutely with all of them. At least I have far too many shrubs in my front yard. And you heard me say the size of the front yard. So shrubs is, it takes up a lot of room. There isn't much room for flowers. I may have to take some out. It's Abelia is the one we have. Do you have Abelias? Is it a lower zone shrub?
Oh, Abelia?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, not a hardy plant.
I don't.
Here.
Yeah, don't.
No. Oh my goodness!
But they're pretty, aren't they?
It's gorgeous.
Sell it as a patio plant. Gave enough color to perform well as a patio plant.
This plant, it grew and grew, and it didn't really flower or anything, and I just ignored it. And one year, my husband pruned it, and he pruned right down to the ground underneath, and it was more like an umbrella kind of thing, a drooping umbrella. Oh my goodness, it bloomed so beautifully that year. And now every year it comes out with these great soft pink and white blooms, and I just can't resist it. It's just gorgeous.
Send me a picture. That sounds really wonderful.
Oh, I did. I took pictures a couple of years ago.
Yeah, put them up on our Facebook page. I'm sure people would be interested in seeing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because a lot of our listeners are in the middle of the country where we can't grow those exotic types.
Well, it's not only the middle of the country; it's also the East Coast has they have pretty high growing zone. They don't get the heat, but they have a lot of frost-free days. Yeah.
In BC, and it's zone 3 in that Kootenay area, right, Jan? When the garden, the grower that you worked for, what zone were they in?
They were in zone 5.
Is that zone 5? But they still grow plants for all across the country.
Yeah, their specialty was to grow plants for zone 3.
Yeah.
So the 5 just gave them a little bit of a jump on the season, but the hardiness, of course, is determined by the varieties, and in the case of seed-grown things, by the source of the seed. So, for example, bur oak is a really becoming
seller in Alberta
each year. Well, their seed source at Bylands would come from Manitoba.
Yeah, yeah.
So that made it a really nice hardy plant for right to zone 2. On shrubs too, I know we didn't bring up euonymus yet.
Oh yes,
okay, go ahead.
I had one for about 7 years, and it finally kicked the bucket last year because of the weather.
And for me, euonymus is another shrub that I just see at gas stations.
Oh, I think they're beautiful.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When they're well kept and well defined here, they offer a fall color like nothing else.
And the variegated ones are fabulous.
Yeah. Now they're more for the slightly warmer climates in Canada.
That's probably why mine kicked the bucket last year. Yeah.
Yeah. But the green varieties, which carry the almost like a mini bleeding heart seed-like appendage in midsummer, I think they're lovely. I really enjoy them.
Yeah. Well, when you put it that way, it makes me want some.
Pardon?
When you put it that way, it makes me want one.
Yeah. They're really pleasant.
But it's funny, we get told we can grow a lot of things here, and we do. They breed some plants that are supposedly hardy, and they are, but they just don't get very big. So I have I think it's an ilex. It's about 12 inches tall. I've had it for about 10 years. And
ilex like holly?
No, I'm sure it's ilex.
Winterberry.
Yeah, something like that. And it's like a tiny little thing. And
right.
But I've had that happen with a number of different plants that they just don't get very big. Or we're supposed to be able to grow wisteria here, which Shauna can tell us all about, because she has an absolutely fabulous one in her backyard. And mine's been there for like 15 years and it doesn't do anything.
Yeah. I've never tried them here in Winnipeg.
Do you know with the wisteria, I know we don't prune it correctly. We don't really prune it at all, except once the flowers die, then I cut all the garbage off. And you're supposed to cut it down to 7 liters and all this stuff. And it's just the way it twists around and gnarls. It's a tree now. It's going up a support in my backyard, a 4x4 pillar that goes up to an arbor. And I swear, if we took the pillar down, the plant would, it's a tree now.
Yeah.
Right. They're about 2 inches in diameter, the vines that are twisting around and growing up like that. And I just can't bring myself to prune it properly because I just love the way it gnarls around like that.
And it really looks amazing. It drips flowers. That's where we get jealous, right, Jan?
Oh, yeah. When I think of wisteria in Toronto and along Lake Ontario, from photos that I've seen, dripping flowers over from the arbor above your patio, it's stunning.
That's what she has.
If I lived there, they'd be part of my yard.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people do have trouble, though, that they can't get them to flower. I'm sure you would be able to, because you're a horticulturist.
You're Jan.
Okay.
You're magic Jan.
But a number of people have a heck of a time. And all I can say is you just treat them poorly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's true about a lot of shrubs and plants, isn't it, Jan? We fuss too much.
Somewhat. Some plants you don't really have to. Some shrubs you don't really have to maintain at all. Like sumac, they grow where it's sun baked and gravelly. And
I have one.
Sometimes I think they even grow better when they're not over tended to.
They
like
sucker.
The tiger. Yeah.
They sucker. I just roll it down with my lawnmower.
Yep, I've got tiger eyes that I planted 10 years ago. I've now got about 8 or 10 of them in different locations. And if they come up in the wrong spot, like right inside another shrub, of course, it's a weed. But sometimes they just sucker up just in the perfect spot where you want that blast of color. So, yeah.
Okay, we're going to take one more break and check in with the folks back at head office. Go ahead.
Find out what's going on in the colorful world of gardening. Follow Canada's Local Gardener on social media. You'll also find out what we're up to, including special offers and exciting contests. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Get growing with us.
And we're back. Okay, we don't have very much time left, but we wanted to talk a little bit about Hascap.
Mm-hmm.
That's that little blueberry, right?
That's the little blueberry that grows on a honeysuckle vine.
Came from Russia or something like that? Have
Russia
I got
and
that right?
Canada.
Yeah, they originated, in various parts of far, far Eastern Europe, definitely Russia, Siberia, Japan, parts of northern China. And the hybridization has been going fairly rapidly at all places. The University of Saskatchewan, Dr. Bors, has been hybridizing them for possibly a generation now, like a couple of decades. And I think they're good because it gives you all the benefits of other blue-fruited shrubs that are prairie hardy, like most notably blueberry, except your crop comes on a month earlier than blueberry.
So what do they taste like, Jan? Do they taste like blueberries? Do they taste like Saskatoons? What do they taste like?
Yep. and raspberry. Each variety, and I'm just looking at a short list here in front of me of 7 varieties, and there's many, many more. Each variety has its own unique flavor, but then each part of your yard might change that flavor for the same variety. In sandy loam, they're going to taste a little bit different than in prairie dark black soil. Or in a peaty acidic soil, the flavor will adjust a bit too. And also the time between picking and consuming will adjust its flavor. But they're full of antioxidants. They're vitamin rich. They're healthy. They are always pleasant to eat. And the nice thing is it extends the blue fruit season. It brings it into June. So Hass-caps are for June and July, then blueberries for July. It just kind of extends that fruit picking and enjoyment.
Do they store well?
Yes, they do. At refrigerative temperatures, like not frozen, but at refrigerator temperatures. Yes, they do.
Better than raspberries?
Oh yeah. And they're not the blueberries, of course, are round. Hass-caps have a funny shape to them. They look like pellets, almost like rabbit pellets in shape. Definitely not in texture, but they have that dusty hue to them that grapes have, and blueberries sometimes have. I just find
do you grow?
Really,
do you have to do what you do with blueberries and have acidic soil, or do they care?
No, they're less needy of acidic soil than blueberries are.
And that's why I ordered a couple. I did try blueberries 15 years ago and failed miserably. And next I'm going to try these Hass-caps. And I've just ordered a couple from Bessie's because you have to have two because they have to cross-pollinate. And we'll see how that goes. But I gather it'll be 2 or 3 years before I can eat any.
And the listeners should maybe just jot down too, and the garden center person that they talk to will remind them, some varieties are particularly good for pollinating other varieties.
Right. So I got a good
garden
pollinator.
centers will choose the group that's their favorite. There's a Polar series, and there's a couple of other series. There's the Aurora and Borealis series, and Polar Jewel, and I believe Polar Jewel is the main pollinator for that group. But that is important. At Bylands, we actually grew a combination of the same size with one pollinator and 2 other varieties in one container. So the plants are of a nature that they can grow well together, clustered together. So having 3 varieties in one planting location is not a bad idea. You'll never know which one you're picking, but you'll have a pollinator in there and some variety in flavor and taste that makes them appealing. So, don't be scared to buy a 5-gallon combination Hass-cap.
I wonder if I did buy 3. I remember that they had, it's so long ago that I ordered them, and they won't send them until, it's time for planting, which shouldn't be too much longer now.
Yeah, and this combination is kind of handy. Now, where you are, Shauna, in a warmer part of Canada than I am, holly is a popular shrub.
I had one as well. It might still be there.
And in order to ensure you get the berries late summer and fall, going into winter, you need a pollinator. So what they've often done there is they'll just plant a girl and a boy in one pot, so that you get a nice, very, very heavily branched shrub, and they intermingle and interbranch with each other, and you can't really tell where one ends and begins. But that way you're pollinating the female and getting everything. You're getting that little bit of bloom in the spring and then the fruit in the fall. So
and sometimes will they graft it onto the same tree?
I'm not sure
about that. No,
they might.
I might have
I've seen were just planted together.
So if you were a new gardener and you had a brand new house and you had no shrubs at all, what would be your, say, 3 or 4 go-tos, Jan? What would you advise?
For foundation, backbone, I would, if it's in the shade, I would look at viburnums. If you need your backbone in full sun to kind of set the tone in the background, I would consider lilacs and dogwoods. And dogwoods are adapted to shade or sun. Yeah. But I use dogwoods in both conditions here. On a light colored south-facing wall, they're just as good as they are on my front, where sun just kind of gets around well after dinner time in the summer. They both do just as well. I think even if you're kind of tired of them, spireas. Spireas are just dependable bursts of gold or gold and red combinations, depending on the variety. And if you just want a foolproof variety, look at Magic Carpet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love bridal wreath spireas.
Oh, bridal wreath. There's another mid-sized shrub with
my favorite too.
Huge panicles of white blooms for about 2 to 3 weeks in late spring, early summer.
Yeah, and they come in a couple of sizes too. You can get the dwarf ones or the taller ones.
Right. Yeah,
So
there's like a 3-lobe dwarf, or you can get the Van Hoot, which is the tall variety. Barberry. I don't think any yard should be without barberry.
I agree. And you know what? I really like that little Orionana, I like these lime-colored plants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had one for about 8 years, and it's still like maybe a foot tall, not even that.
That one popular one for that, if you like that real nice burst of gold with, sometimes you get a little pink tinge on them, is Sensation.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I haven't got that.
Sensation. And they're really
I guess
nice.
I'm going to be buying some more shrubs this spring and filling in some more spots in the perennials garden, because I think shrubs, they really are the bones of the garden, aren't they? I mean, anybody that builds a garden has to have shrubs.
Yeah. And we didn't really get a chance in this talk anyway to talk about evergreens, but evergreens are vital to whether it's pine, juniper upright or juniper spreading, and thuya or cedar. What do you call thuya in Toronto and Southern Ontario, or do you go with cedar also?
I think they call them cedar.
Okay, all right. Because I know when I sold into Minnesota and that, they would use arborvitae, for example.
Yeah,
they call it that too.
Yeah, but anyway, they're important because they're part of the winter landscape. So,
Well, and not only that, but they attract a lot of wonderful birds.
Yep.
And they make great windbreaks. So if you're in an exposed spot, that's a great way to keep your heating prices down.
Exactly.
And they're just gorgeous, and they just add another dimension to the garden. And what I really like are these so many little tiny ones. Proven Winners has been sending me plants for years, and in my front garden, she's jealous.
They don't send me plants.
Maybe they will now. I have some that are just like, they're maybe a foot tall, a foot wide, maybe 6 inches. They never get any bigger. Little. I don't even know their names, but they're all just delightful, and you could build a whole garden just out of those.
I should mention that one time when I started the garden, I planted a very small yew that I thought would stay small.
Your yew. That's what I was thinking.
It's got to be 10 feet tall.
My yew is a foot tall.
Oh, the yew. Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wish mine were.
hers dominates the backyard. You can't open the back door because of her yew.
And then when it snows, when you get a big wet heavy snow, you can't get through the backyard because of it. We're revamping the backyard completely, I think.
But can you prune the yew? Is it like a cedar?
I guess you can.
Yeah, you can.
Just a little bit at a time, or?
Yeah, I think from when I visited Toronto and Southern Ontario, yews are a backbone of your neighborhood too.
And they do. They look great, and they get the red cones that look like berries.
And they haven't been commonly used in the prairie provinces until a few years ago when Morden Upright Yew came out with his own 3 hardiness.
Oh,
so I think that's the one I've got.
And it's nice. It's a really nice
How
plant.
come mine's so little?
Well, they're listed to be compact and round and slow growing, so that's why.
Okay, I guess I'll be patient then. Maybe another 30 years, and I'll get a yew.
Yeah.
There is so much to talk about when it comes to trees and shrubs, and today I guess we pretty much limited it to flowering shrubs, but gosh, there's a whole lot more in woody plants that we can talk about. But
down the road, we can cover off flowering trees. Shade trees, of course, are vital.
More fruiting trees and shrubs.
Yeah.
But today, I think we're just about out of time. So I do want to thank Jan and Dorothy for being with us today. And I definitely want to thank the Government of Canada for giving us the grant that made this possible. And welcome everybody back to our podcast in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Jan, great to see you. And thanks again, Shauna. It was a good show. Thank you.
Thank you. Really enjoyed myself. Thanks for inviting me.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.